Okay, in part 3, we're going to talk about groupthink. I mentioned this a little bit in the second video, part 2, but we're going to explore it in a little more detail here. So Irving Janis, who is a social psychologist, he's the one who came up with this term, groupthink. And what is it? Well, when we talked about groups and how important it is for groups to form norms, right? And to work cohesively. Sometimes, if you get too much of that, you end up with this phenomenon called groupthink. And that's really where you have too much thinking right along the same lines. And no one is thinking about maybe things a little differently. So some of the symptoms of groupthink. The group has an illusion of invulnerability. They think, hey, everybody in this group, we're all thinking the same way. It's got to be right. We're good to go. No one questions the morality of the decisions because everybody's thinking, along the same line. So what we're doing has to be the right thing to do, right? And that goes into the rationalization. So they rationalize some of the decisions that are made. And this rationalizing really prevents members from thinking about what their own beliefs are, and they start ignoring warning signs. Stereotyping leads members of the group to ignore or maybe even demonize people who are outside of the group or maybe who are kind of thinking a little differently. So self-censorship is when people in the group who might have a different opinion, they feel threatened, and so they self-censor and they don't speak up about what's going on. Mind guards, those might be kind of self-appointed censors to hide problematic information from the group, so that different information can't get in to the group. Another symptom of groupthink is that they have an illusion of unanimity. They think that everybody is unanimous in how they want to approach a problem. They may or may not be, but they have an illusion that everybody is unanimous and thinking exactly the same way. And direct pressure. Sometimes direct pressure is used to get members who might be thinking a little differently, if those members are asking questions, to kind of have them change their minds. So I've got a link here that'll be in your slides if you want some more information on that. So groupthink is likely, and groupthink again, it's a bad thing. You want cohesiveness, but not too much. And so you might experience groupthink with a very highly cohesive group. If there are some structural flaws in the process, so if the group is insulated from everybody else in the company, that might lend itself to groupthink. If one person has too much influence in the group, that's another structural flaw. And then volatile situations, if the group is tasked with making some really important decisions, right? Something that's either stressed because of the importance of the decision, if lives are at stake, or there's a lot of money at stake, those volatile situations create very high stress levels. And people in the group might rush to make a decision that might turn out to be flawed. I've got an example. You may have heard of this before, but when the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up, it's an example of groupthink. So let me play this video for you. Come on, there we go.
Yet another costly red faces all around
space shuttle launch delay.
Why do group decisions sometimes result in monumental error? What drives groups to make decisions against their better judgment? Using the story of the Space Shuttle Challenger, this video explores the phenomenon of groupthink, in which group members seek unanimous agreement despite their own individual doubts.
Since Flight 17, we know something we didn't know before. The primary O-ring can fail completely. The shuttle has flown 19 times, and it's come back 19 times. Our job isn't to run around like Chicken Little hollering the sky is falling. It's to keep that shuttle flying.
Dr. James K. Esser identifies the 8 symptoms of groupthink.
When more of these symptoms are present, the likelihood is greater that groupthink has occurred. Therefore, the probability is higher that any resulting decision will be unsuccessful, possibly even catastrophic.
The Air Force estimates 29 degrees at launch tomorrow morning.
We have no data on O-rings operating at temperatures this low.
So determining if this extreme cold will affect the O-rings, and if it does, how much is critical.
So our recommendation is not launching until the temperature is at least 53 degrees.
It's my understanding that the solid rocket boosters are qualified by contract for operation between 40 and 90 degrees. Are the solids qualified at 40 degrees or aren't they?
What you're saying sounds like Morton Thiokol is establishing new launch commit criteria the night before a launch. Now, these solid rocket boosters have been operating under very definite specifications. You suddenly want to change them. At that rate, it could be spring before the shuttle would fly. My God, Thiokol, when do you want me to launch? Next April?
Our charts may be inconclusive. Our data insufficient. But everything we do have shows we'll be safe for launching at 53 degrees or above. That's clear. That's absolutely clear.
It's time to make a decision. Bob, take off your engineer's hat and put on your management hat.
Does anyone in the loop have a different position?
Even though we have some concerns about the low temperatures, we now recommend
proceeding with the launch.
With this powerful video, viewers will learn how to avoid unwanted organizational actions by making decisions that truly reflect a team consensus.
Okay, well, the good news is that there are some ways to minimize the potential for groupthink. So every member should assume the role of a critical evaluator and should ask questions, offer reasons for their positions, and express disagreement. The group needs to discuss potential negative outcomes. You know, what could go wrong if we did it this way? And they need to find a devil's advocate. So a devil's advocate is, you know, the role of a devil's advocate is to just kind of poke holes in the idea that's out there, and there should be one. If you can find one who who already is playing that role, then you need to encourage them. And if not, then you need to ask someone to take that role, to play the devil's advocate, to make sure that you don't put these blinders on, you go down this path and everybody's going along and they're not thinking about, well, what if? What if this happened? What if that happened? And they end up with a disaster. This quote from Albert Einstein gets to the heart of groupthink. When we all think alike, no one thinks very much. Okay, so let's talk about conflict in groups. Pseudo conflict can happen when maybe members actually, they think they disagree on an issue, but maybe the communication is just lacking and they actually agree, they just haven't been able to communicate that to each other. Issue-related conflict occurs when Somebody's ideas or opinions about how to go about solving a problem, they're just incompatible. Personality-related group conflict, when two or more members of that group, maybe they get defensive because they feel like they're being attacked. And then maybe the members of the group are from different cultures, and that's creating some conflict. All right, now take a moment and think, what do you like and dislike about participating in groups? You can think about your pod for this class or other groups that you belong to. As we did in the first video, there's probably a lot of different groups that you're a part of. Think about what have been your best group experiences. Why was it a good experience? Is it because everybody got along? Is it because you were able to accomplish your goals? And then finally, think about some of your worst group experiences and why it was a terrible experience. Can you pinpoint, exactly what went wrong in that scenario? Okay, and this is the end of part 3.